students. When the program first started in Belmont, they rode in a station wagon. They had 6 or 8 students.
I see.
That's all. Okay.
And can you tell us a little bit about what the goal and purpose of METCO is?
Well, the goal is to a better education. We felt parents and professional people in Boston felt that the Boston public schools were not giving the children the proper academic education. And it also to reduce racial isolation in the receiving communities.
Okay, Diane, I know you are with METCO more recently. We have talked some about your perception of METCO in general and METCO in Belmont. Can you tell me more particularly what the history of METCO in Massachusetts is? What is the history of METCO in Massachusetts? When did it start? Why? By whom? For whom? And so forth.
Well, I was a student myself in the early 1960s when, to support the desegregation efforts in the South that were going on, Boston leaders in the black community formed a coalition to organize school boycotts. And I was one of the children who attended Freedom School at Freedom House, which was headed by Otto and Muriel Snowden. We actually attended school there. And I think it was there that black educators started to see that there was a difference between the children who were coming from predominantly white schools in Boston and children who were coming from predominantly black schools in Boston. And I think that subsequently became known as de facto segregation. Within 2 years of the school boycotts, the program Operation Exodus was established, in which students started to exchange schools across the city in an attempt to balance the education. We know that separate is unequal. So when in those segregated schools, they wanted to allow those children to attend schools like where I was going to in Dorchester and Mattapan that were predominantly white to attempt to balance the situation. But as a result of Operation Exodus, superintendents in the suburbs started looking at the fact that they wanted to provide a more racially balanced situation in their school districts. And starting with 7 superintendents, I think was led by the superintendent in Brookline at the time, Bob Sperber, approached the city of Boston and these leaders who were organizing Exodus and the school boycotts and started to talk about how do we develop a program where students from Boston can come out to our suburban school districts.
I think it's very, very interesting that a good part of the impetus for METCO came from the suburban schools.
Correct.
That they initiated interest in students of color in Boston and said, hey, let's help out, let's do something about the fact that these students of color in the Boston school system are not getting the education they should be getting. There's something which we have not talked about a lot, Diane or Thelma, which I would like to dwell upon today and perhaps move away from this a little bit. I'd like to hear success stories from METCO. Starting first with Thelma, perhaps. Tell us about some stories about children who went into the program, met with success, went on to college, careers, and so forth.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that question because we never hear about the success stories. During my tenure, I had 2 students accepted to Harvard University. I have students now that are lawyers, doctors, and they all graduated from Belmont High School. Some of them started in the 1st grade, and one that went to Harvard started in the 9th grade. And we have a lot of successful stories here, but you never hear about them.
And Diane, would you do the same thing? Tell us of some of your success stories?